Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Let's talk a little bit about the AI bubble from a science fiction writer's perspective. Here's a book I wrote that involves AI, demonic AI, kind of involving some of our questions and thoughts about AI and especially generative AI software from a couple of years ago. You can actually get a free ebook copy of this book by joining my mailing list, dvspress.com/list, and check it out. I had a lot of fun writing this book, and I think you'll have fun reading it. So, AI bubble, that's the subject of this video. Do I believe there's an AI bubble and it's going to pop and there's going to be some kind of devaluation? I do, and I have a couple of reasons for believing that. Some of them are more mundane, just economic reasons. I'm not just a science fiction author. I'm not just a guitarist. I've done other things. I was a teacher. I was also raised by an economist. So I tend to look at a lot of these things through the lens of how an economist would look at it. So in a mundane way, we've seen overvaluations and market corrections, what people call bubbles, and the pop of the bubble, which is where something is being traded and the value of what's being traded drops in order to meet some better, more realistic value. Things get overvalued in the trade, and then the market corrects. The bad assets are kind of gotten rid of in that business cycle, and you get ready for the next business cycle. If you've taken economics courses, you might know how this works. I think we have a lot of recent history to look at for bubbles, and I think for AI, the big one to look at would be the dot-com bubble bust. That happened around the year 2000 or 2001, 2002. I remember this because a lot of my boomer relatives were really excited about these dot-com stocks and the NASDAQ stock exchange. They were buying them up. They were just buying all of these stocks randomly because they were all going up. Why were they going up? Well, they're going up because part of the information in the value of a traded asset, whether that's an equity, like a stock, or it's like, a security, or it's just an object, is perceived future value of it, right? So the price information there contains a lot. So one of the things is, how much do we think it's going to be worth in the future? So when things are trading for a lot, it's because investors believe that it's going to be worth even more in the future. And the correction happens when the market and the investors, the people trying to buy and sell, start to realize that it's not going to be worth that in the future, or really they start to believe that it won't be worth as much in the future, and the trading price goes. I'm not going to buy it for $100 a share. I'll buy it for $50 a share because that's what I think it'll be worth in the future, right? So the stock prices all collapsed for this dot-com bust, and everybody was surprised except for me because even though I was just like a teenager at the time, I'm like, this is all going to have a giant bust, and my boomer parents, not my dad kind of knew what was up, but like my other boomer relatives are like, you're just a dumb kid. You don't know. This is going to the moon. The internet's the future. Now, the internet was the future. Why did the stocks collapse? It's because there wasn't really a product with a lot of these dot-com stocks, like women.com. What's the product? Well, it's a website. People can view the website, but what is it selling? What's its revenue? This is before we had the big sort of behemoth of Google that was going to be helping all sites monetize more thoroughly in the 2000s. So there was a big correction. It's just like, you're not making anything that generates money, even if the internet is the future. And what emerged from that collapse are the big internet companies that we think about today, following a couple years later. Things like Google, Facebook happened a few years later. So once people figured out there was a way to like monetize the internet, then all of a sudden it was a hyper valuable thing. When it was still new, people were just excited about the idea of the internet, and they were throwing money at all of these little mini IPOs that were starting up and then collapsing. So I think we could see that again for AI if we're looking at that as the model. Now, the problem with an AI bubble is that a huge portion of the value of AI is not in some publicly traded stock. It's very diffuse. There's publicly traded companies that own portions of, say, OpenAI. So it's all very diffuse. So rather than seeing like a trade, right, we're not going to see like, oh, all these assets are trading really high, or all these equities are trading really high and then they collapse. Probably not going to see that. If I was going to put a moment on like a bubble pop, it's because it would be if OpenAI has an IPO. And the reason for that is that that's going to be the cash out moment. If it has like $1 trillion IPO, it sells the stock, and then the stockholders are like, well, where's the revenue? And it's like, there's no revenue. No one wants to buy the stock after that, right? So that'll be the cash out, is when the people who build OpenAI cash out by having an IPO. Then the bubble will pop at that point. So if it doesn't happen before that, that's going to be the moment, because then you have the market actually valuing some kind of equity that's traded. And the value of that is the future confidence, and future confidence is related to the revenue. And because there's never really been any significant revenue from AI hasn't generated any money, then you're going to have a big correction. But as it is now, it's like Microsoft stock could go down because it owns some of OpenAI. It owns like a big percentage, maybe 49%. I don't remember what it is. So like their stock could go down, but they have the Copilot AI, and like, so it tends to be more diffuse. All of these companies have invested in each other. It's a very interconnected network that's going on right now. And if we're just going to put that economic stuff to the side. So if you're thinking of the vibe, it would be like, what goes up must come down. You can kind of feel a bubble when it happens, when it's like houses. Remember the housing bubble? It's like houses are $800,000 when they were $300,000 2 years ago. Why? This doesn't make any sense. And it's because of, we don't need to get into that, but then it corrected, it collapsed, and that was bad for a lot of people who were putting a lot of their valuation into the value of their home, or they were like taking home equity loans and stuff. But for people who wanted to buy a home, that was good. And so the collapse of value can actually be good because it clears out the toxic assets and allows for the next investment cycle. What we have with AI is this really, really long period of investment. We've had huge amounts of money invested, huge amounts of capital investment in things like GPUs and computer hardware and data centers and all the things that make the large language models work at scale. We've had huge amounts of investment. We've had about 5 years from this current kind of cycle of investment, and there hasn't really been any revenue. So the big economic thing is like, when is this going to make money? And if it never makes money, then something has to change. You have to shut down the data centers. You have to change the technology. Something's going to change. The valuation will go down. People will stop wanting to use AI because it's not as useful as everybody hoped it would be. And that's going to be the economic part. Now I'm going to transition over into more of like the ideas, because so much of the ideas of AI are being sold in this very fantastical and quasi-religious way. They're being sold with ideas of the future. First of all, the line goes up fallacy. That's always one, right? Anytime you see a bubble like this is going to the moon, think about how many people, I know I'm still talking about economics, but think about how many people were excited about Bitcoin when it was like $100,000 and then it dropped to 50K like in 2 days. Well, what happened? Well, people stopped believing in the future of Bitcoin for a little bit. Okay, so that can happen there. Line does not always go up. It doesn't mean like Bitcoin became worthless, but line does not always go up. What goes up must come down. So the ideas behind AI are what are interesting to me, and that's a lot of what people are selling. Sam Altman is a big one. He's basically selling people the moon on this technology that we can call large language models and sort of associated generative technologies. And what they're saying is that this is somehow going to transform into general intelligence, what they're calling general intelligence, which would be sort of like a superhuman mind, right? It would be like a person and would have intelligence like a person, but larger because it has bigger data sets and it can compute more quickly and things like that. So I don't see a connection between large language models, which I'm trying to remember who described it. It's like a blurry JPEG of the internet. You can just Google that. The name is slipping my mind, but just Google it because that'll get you where you need to go. AI is a blurry JPEG of the internet. And you can also check out a YouTube channel called Internet of Bugs. He has some really good videos on AI and some of the things that the people making these products are selling. One of them is generalized intelligence. So they are in the science fiction realm, and they're in the science fiction realm with like this belief in their technology, that their technology is going to generate the science fiction future, right? That they're going to be creating truly artificial intelligences, things that are like us, but are artificial, right? And it's been a subject of science fiction for decades at this point. And I believe it's still going to be part of science fiction. And this is because large language models, while they continue to upgrade the models, they're changing the data, their use has not really been increased. Like they haven't gotten more useful. And in some cases, the people who are really into them were like, well, now this new version's like less useful than it was because it's censored or whatever. I just don't see GPT becoming like a quote sapient being. And part of that is that we can't accurately describe what intelligence is. We don't have a good working definition. Sort of like we know that we're intelligent and like dogs aren't, or that dogs are some fraction of intelligence of humans, but we don't really know like what is intelligence. We have IQ tests that supposedly measure it, but you get into kind of circular thinking. Like has low intelligence because his IQ is low. It's like, no, we're kind of reaching towards something that's outside that test. So will we get generalized intelligence from large language models? I don't think so. I think you would need another technology. It doesn't mean large language models will be useless. I mainly think that their uses will be more limited. I think the ultimate thing that we could have from large language models would be like the computer from Star Trek, which is a voice-operated supercomputer that can respond to many commands and requests quickly and accurately. And that's the advantage of large language models, is that you can use human language to interface with the software. And so if you imagine watching the Star Trek Next Generation, computer, where is this person? This person is on deck 12. And it's like, okay, great. You answered my question. I didn't have to go and do a bunch of clicks and find things. You just quickly operated everything that you needed to do. Computer, what's this math question? Computer, can you scan this and tell me this? Yes. And then who's making all the decisions in Star Trek? Well, it's people. It's because people need to be taking in the correct filtered data and then making accurate decisions about what they need to happen or what they want to happen. Can a software program want things? Can it desire outcomes? I don't think so. And I think you'd have a hard time programming it to do so. You can program it to have preferred outcomes based on what you prefer for outcomes, but can it prefer outcomes on its own? That would be probably the big test of sapience. Is like, can it want things for its own sake, not because it was programmed to want them? And I just don't see how large language models are going to do that, because they're all about, the way neural networks work. It's all about generating approximations of data that it's already ingested. So it's not going to be doing like original thinking. So they're selling the future on this. They're selling the moon, this idea that we're going to have this generalized intelligence and it's going to revolutionize the world. Now, AI might be the future and it might be a great technology the way the internet was the future and was a great technology, but that doesn't mean that we should be dropping trillions of dollars into data centers to have large language models everywhere. Right. There may just have more limited uses than that. It may not be as profitable to be running these things at the scale that all of the AI proponents really believe. And you have to make another question too, or ask another question, which is the energy you're spending to approximate a human mind more energy than a human mind? Because human beings, as we're physical objects, we're not just minds. We're not, we're not spirits occupying a meat puppet. We're not moist computers or anything like that. We are holistic living beings. We take in energy. We use that energy really efficiently. So if you're using like a nuclear power plant to approximate a human mind, is that a good use of the energy when you have human minds that are sitting there ready to be used? No, I think it's probably better to look at this technology as something that can provide accurate, filtered information to people in a quick and efficient manner so that they can make quick and efficient decisions. The big use that I've seen for large language models has been programming, and this is the one that people have talked about a lot in the comments. Rather than looking up code, right? Looking up code for like a project, you can have the AI just grab the code for you. It's a lot quicker than looking up like a code repository or something like that. So you can generate that code quickly. And if you know what you're doing as a programmer, again, it's one of those things that in the hands of a master, it can be a really good a really good tool, you can really quickly debug it, really quickly fit that code that it generated into the program that you're doing. And so get more done in less time, making programmers more efficient. Does this mean this will replace programmers? Based on the experts who I've listened to, the answer is no. It doesn't replace programmers, but it can make an expert programmer able to do certain things a lot more quickly. So there's like a use case for it. In that case, you could use large language models to process large amounts of data and filter it for people, like whether it's identifying cancer in x-rays or something like that. So there's a lot of use cases that people have come up with for large language models that I think are really great and may provide a lot of benefit. But do I need Copilot on my Windows computer? The answer is I don't, and I don't want it. And this is the general consumer sentiment, is like, I don't want this intruding into everything. I don't want it on my phone. I don't want my phone to be a laggy piece of shit because it's querying a giant data center to try to get a large language model to respond to me. I just want Siri to write a text to my friend. That's the voice operation that I want on my phone, right? I don't need all this crap. And that's where I think the general sentiment about large language models and AI comes from, is it's just not useful for regular people except in like more limited circumstances. And then those limited circumstances where it's useful, you have to ask the question, is it worth paying for? Because right now, everybody's kind of beta testing it. If it was like, okay, well, your AI access is $100 a month. Are people going to keep using, are people going to pay $100 a month for an AI? You know, they're burning money. This investment cycle has been going on forever. They're buying up all the computer hardware to build more data centers, to have more large language models. Are people going to pay $100 a month for it? Are people going to, how much are they going to pay? Would you pay $10 a month for it? I pay for like Twitter Premium, and it comes with Grok. Like I have access to Grok. And so like Amazon could maybe have it if it's part of Prime, and I think people would be cool with that. But if you're just like, it's $100 to use Chat GPT, I don't think anyone would pay for it. I think some people would, but like most people would be like, no, I'm not paying for that. No, I'll write my own letters, thanks, or I'll use a cheaper AI or something like that. So when you get to the monetization part, like how are people going to be paying for these things to operate, not just to do the investment cycle, but you invested all this money. Now you have to get a return that justifies that investment. Where's the ROI? Where is that? Where's it coming from? Are people going to really use these things? Most of the people I've seen who've been most excited about generative AI usage outside of like these limited tech areas that I talked about are suffering from what I call the AI Dunning-Kruger effect. I've talked about it before. Basically, they are unable to properly judge the outputs of the AI in order to know whether they're good or bad. So they're using AI to like generate handouts as teachers, and the handouts are bad or wrong, but they just don't know that because they're not checking it, or they're too lazy to check it, or they don't know what they're doing. They're like, I could generate a handout for this thing I don't know about. It's like, but if you don't know about it, how do you know that the handout's right? Part of this is our problem, right? We think of these AI programs as being analogous to humans, being part of general intelligence. But, and we use terms to describe that. They hallucinate, which is they just give wrong information. They extrapolate wrong information from their data set, right? It's sort of noise in the blurry JPEG of the internet, right? It's just kind of noise that pops out. So if you have a human that knows something or can look a little deeper, like, I don't know, an AI summary could be a good first step of a thing. But it's not going to solve most of your problems. But yeah, the AI Dunning-Kruger effect, people, they create AI images. Now, the cover of this book is actually AI, and I purposefully did it with those weird fingers because it's about AI art. So it kind of went together with the whole theme of the book. But a lot of people that I see doing AI art aren't artistic enough to know that the AI output is not good, and to judge an AI output, to pick which one's the best, or be able to fix the AI output properly. That's the big thing that I've seen over and over again, is people are unable to properly evaluate the outputs of the AI and to use them correctly. So the people that I've seen most excited about it are the people who are kind of least competent to use it, outside of those sort of specific areas that I talked about there. So when we talk about generalized intelligence and selling the moon and selling this giant revolution, that we're going to have robots doing all of these things, and robots will eliminate the need for money. These are kind of religious feelings that people have. They're science fiction feelings. And when we are making predictions about the future, our biggest guidepost is past events, things that have happened in the past. Maybe history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Same thing with economic cycles. We've seen so many economic cycles. We kind of have an idea how economic cycles work. Even if we can't accurately predict the moment that they begin and the moment they end, we can kind of guess how they're going to be operating when things are happening. And it's going to be the same thing, I think, with this one, is that we'll see, some kind of market correction for the AI, for the use of AI. Maybe consumers will revolt and stop using the AI. Maybe we will have bigger problems. So my big complaint about AI and why I've kind of shifted over the years from being kind of curious about AI and maybe even positive to being pretty critical of AI is the second order effects. I think people are massively underrating the second order effects, and maybe that'll be part of where the bubble will really pop, is the things that AI will destroy unintentionally. And these are not things that we're like, oh, you got to compete with AI and you're like a horse buggy thing, or the buggy whip. You're a buggy whip maker. No. What it will actually destroy the things that people really want to use. So the internet is an example where I think we reached the point where 50% of the internet is generative. It's like been generated by bots and stuff. You can't search things very accurately anymore because half of the pages that you want to look at are generated by AI, and then the AI summary is a summary of those AI generated things. So you can't really trust it. So the point where we can maybe trust the AI summary was a couple years ago, and now it's becoming less trustworthy. So the internet becomes less and less useful. People are not going to want to post things on the internet if they can't make money on the internet, and the AI, instead of sending people to websites where people have that information, it gives people a summary. People don't click the website. So this sort of economic arrangement that people on the internet had, which is where like I do a useful thing, I provide some useful information, and I get some traffic, and maybe I can sell something. I can sell a book, or like I could sell some ad space. And that's the arrangement, is I get paid to provide a service to you, the internet user. And now it's like, Google's like, nope, we'll just give that information to them and you get nothing. It's like, okay, are people going to want to continue making the internet a really good place if they are unable to get any kind of attention? It's an attention economy. So what's AI doing? It's just stealing the attention that people would normally have. I think someone showed me that there was like an AI slop YouTube channel based out of India, of course, India, that made like $4.5 million last year. So that $4.5 million is essentially a kind of stolen value. Because what people want to watch on YouTube is other people, and the algorithm feeds them AI slop, right? Or they're being fooled into thinking something is real when it's AI slop. They're seeing AI slop in the shorts, in the shorts reels, whether they picked it or not, because these things are kind of automatic. The algorithm's picking it. And, the models themselves, there's a lot of ethical issues about where they get their training data from. In which case, if a person's using AI based on copyrighted images that have been fed into a machine to make new things, then they are kind of stealing the value from the people who made the original thing to begin with, and can no longer have that thing be seen, not because they can't compete with AI. People think this is wrong, like AI is better. No, it's that AI produces so much volume that you can't find anything else. At a certain point, the AI is so overwhelming that the site becomes unusable. And maybe YouTube is going to reach that point. You're watching this probably on YouTube. Maybe YouTube is going to reach that point where it's just going to become unusable. You won't be able to find people anymore. You won't be able to trust what you see, and we'll have to go back to having everything be more realistic. Instead of watching your musicians on YouTube, you'll have to go see them at the local pub because you can't trust what you see on YouTube anymore. You're just going to see a lot of boring, crappy AI music. You're going to want something more authentic, and maybe that's going to be stepping away from the computer. So this internet, which allowed me to like have a business selling books, have a business making music, have a business making YouTube videos. The second order effect of AI is that all of that can go away, because AI, not because AI is better at it, but because by design it cuts off the attention that people would get and fills up the entire rest of the space with really noisy, shitty shit that people eventually just get bored of and don't want to see anymore. So that's the second order effect. And when that pops, like what happens to YouTube? When people stop watching YouTube because it's too full of AI slop, boom, You know, when people stop using Windows because they are so tired of Copilot interfering and spying on their thing, and they all start using Linux, what happens? Right? What happens when the enterprise clients stop using Windows because they don't like Copilot? I know that there's like a different enterprise Copilot. Like, what happens when they decide that that's not worth it? You know, we're coming up on this point where people are going to be asking, like, what's the value of this thing? Everybody was really hopeful that it would just like save all this labor. And as far as I can tell, it hasn't. And I've seen a lot of, a lot of info floating around that a lot of companies are viewing their LLM usage as having zero net positive impact, and in fact having a negative impact. It's causing more work than it's actually saving in terms of labor. So anyway, I would love to have your thoughts on that down below. You can check out this book on Amazon or get it free on my mailing list, dvspress.com/list, as well as my other fantasy and science fiction books and my nonfiction book. Where is it? Keys to Prolific Creativity. Show you how to have a creative process and get things done creatively. Please do check out my Patreon. I am working on a guitar thing right now. So music is my focus. I'm working on a large scale solo guitar piece. And I don't have anything to show for it yet because we're still in the composition and practice phase. And because I'm wanting to do things that are more human, I really want to be able to play these things live. Even if there's maybe a couple mistakes, I want to be able to play them live so that they're real rather than like a studio demo. I may still do a studio demo so that I can hear like a perfect version of it, but you know, I really want it to be live. I want it to be a live experience kind of thing. So anyway, check that out. I'll link down below in the description and follow my Substack. I do post articles there from time to time. Have a great one. Leave me your thoughts on AI and a potential AI bubble. I don't know what the collapse exactly is going to look like. You know, if it's going to be a stock market crash, like Nvidia will lose value because people will stop buying the cards, or what it's going to look like. But I think we'll have a correction, and then you'll be able to buy your PC parts again. You'll be able to get them at an affordable price again. Anyway, let me know, and I'll see you all next time. Have a great day.